This started with a completely different life path. In middle school and high school, I was an avid wrestler, and my family had always been really into food on an amateur level, and the sport of wrestling kind of took me away from that through cutting weight and all that type of voluntary suffering. And so I wanted to stay connected with the food my family was participating in, even though I couldn't eat it. So for whatever reason, I gravitated towards bread. And then I would give it to friends at school. I'd take it to English class and we'd pass it around while we read. And I just kind of got the bug because of that. And then I got every book I could on it. My dad and I built a brick oven in my backyard when I was about 15 or 16. But it didn't really dawn on me that it could be a profession until maybe 17 or 18 when I actually had to choose a college. And I realized that I wasn't really suited to be behind a desk, for hours a day. So Johnson & Wales was the choice. That's in Providence. And it just kind of unfolded from there. Yeah, Johnson & Wales had an incredibly strong baking and pastry program. It was probably the best in the country at the time. Mitch Stamm, who was my bread professor, was a huge influence. We were also super fortunate to be the training center for Team USA, for the baking team that goes to the Coupe du Monde in Paris every 4 years. And so we got exposed to arguably the best bakers in the country, if not the world. And I got to help the participants train, and I made some really meaningful connections there, and that definitely influenced my craft and the direction I wanted to take things. No, when Evergrain opened, jumping forward a little bit, I had no business plan. The plan was to bake bread. And as much of it as possible, that was kind of what really drove me to be a baker, was that I knew what I made had an impact on people, and it was a positive one, and I just wanted to get as much bread out to as many people. And whenever I thought about the cash side of it, it really sapped the romance and the interest almost immediately. I couldn't think about it in those terms. It was all about the bread and the experience, the memories, the more romantic side. Evergrain, we opened in November of 2010, about a day or two before Thanksgiving. And I had a brief stint managing a bakery in Colorado when I graduated in the spring. And just knew that was not what I wanted. I'd already gotten a taste by selling at the Chestertown's farmers market for 2 summers prior, in between college, and it was what I knew what I wanted to do. I mean, the only thing I love more than baking itself is teaching. So I've had a variety of opportunities to teach both here and with friends that I've made along the way. Anthropology classes from the college used to come in, and we would show them bread baking, sourdough, that kind of thing. And then, of course, training staff is always a thing that happens all the time. And just educating on such a commonplace substance that no one really knows anything about anymore. A French baker said it really well, Lionel Poulin. He said, we're basically taking the best of the old and the best of the new and fusing it together, called retro innovation. So taking the best equipment that's used in commercial applications, but fusing it with old world techniques that are slower, less efficient, what people would say is maybe even less profitable, but to yield the highest quality product that people without access to that technology before couldn't accomplish. So we're kind of doing them justice in a sense, but also our own spin on it. But yeah, it's a transformation of this completely flavorless substance, and through fermentation is being unlocked into this really complex palette of flavor. And that's kind of where the magic happens. A mentor told me early on that making an amazing product is not the difficult part. It's getting it to your customer. And me baking for one market a week out of my garage versus being open 7 days a week, supplying a whole medley of things from coffee to lunches to a place to enjoy it all in, that's the real challenge. And I think that finding staff that are as excited about what you're doing as you are is always the age-old challenge. But I think in town, it's a little harder too. I think it's a smaller pool. Totally, yeah. COVID was tough. People were unsure of what was happening, and including us. We forfeited one farmer's market because we didn't know. It was so early on. But we also knew at the same time that we had to continue. So there was solidarity in that. It was incredible, actually, the amount of support we received. We had 1 month where we were questioning the direction of things, and after that, it would actually wound up being our busiest year. We currently do Crofton, Easton, and Havre de Grace. So they're all Maryland-based farmers markets, and they're all on Saturday. So that plus the shop kind of like maxes us out in terms of output. But it's cool to kind of be present geographically throughout the state all in one day with our product, and that people will come and visit Chestertown and visit Evergrain's storefront because of the impact we have on communities through farmers markets. Would love to work with local farmers to help create or expand upon existing food systems. So using as much locally grown grain as possible, as many heritage grains as possible, with as little pesticide exposure as possible. These are kind of like the long-term goals. Decentralizing food systems, I think, is a no-brainer in this day and age in terms of creating food security and identity. And there's a lot of farmers who are getting on board with that. So all that to say, we're on the precipice of getting our production facility that will be off-site online. And the goal is to mill our own flour there. At least for the most important naturally leavened breads that we make, like the miche, which you got to see the other day that I was making. So part of the gluten epidemic that people are experiencing is because of how we have overbred wheat, contains so much gluten, and then the additives and the pesticides that they're overexposed to, we struggle to digest ourselves. So it would be really interesting to see if we can convert as much of our product as possible to purer grains or less adulterated grains, how people respond to it. Yeah, so we kind of like try and touch upon different regions of Europe mostly. So the daily staple is the baguette. It's a traditional baguette, so it's a long, slow fermentation. I would call the dough a hybrid dough because it has both commercial yeast and sourdough starter in it. And that provides better digestibility and nutritional aspects, along with still maintaining that crisp texture that we're kind of used to with the baguette. If a baguette was entirely sourdough, it's going to be delicious, but it's going to be denser. The texture is going to be not quite as reminiscent. And that's a near and dear product to my heart. It's probably like neck and neck with the miche, which we got to see be made the other day. We touch upon some Italian bread, so we do a rosemary focaccia. All of our breads are generally fermented for at least 24 hours, if not closer to 36. So that increases the keeping qualities and the flavor profile. And it also makes production a lot easier for our bakers. It's not just, it is for the customers, but it's also for our way of life. We also do, what else do? We do a cheddar and herb loaf. We do a cinnamon raisin, because it's just a classic. And we do a New York style bagel, which I've been told is pretty accurate. And so that is a huge seller at farmers markets. It's actually a bigger seller there than it is at the shop. We probably only sell a dozen or two at the shop, and we'll sell close to 12 dozen at each market. But yeah, it's all just a process, and it's a labor of love, and it's not made in a factory. It's not, it is made by people that you probably know or have seen before or had conversations, and it's their life, and they derive a similar level of satisfaction from it as I do, and it's for a cause that we believe in.